All right, everybody. Well, welcome to Live from My Drum Room. Today's guest is an old friend going back to 1986, whom I had the honor of working with at Drum Workshop. He's an authority on drum building, drum design, drum tuning, all things drums. He's also the co founder of Drum Workshop, DW Drums, of course, the legendary DW Drums. In fact, Neil Peart gave him the nickname Wood Whisperer. I'm speaking, of course, of the legendary John Good, and it's truly a pleasure to have him here with me today. So please welcome John Good to Live from My Drum Room.
Thank you. Thank you, John.
John,
Very
thanks
much.
for being here.
I only you seemingly get to see you at trade shows or something like that.
I know, and if I can have more than a minute of your time at a trade show, I feel like I won the lottery because you're what's bigger than the president of NAM? You're the I don't know what, but you're a popular man.
Well, it's nice, and I love those folks. Some of them I've seen and spoke to, of course, there, but they come out and they say, "Hey, you want to know how that turned out?" And a few times I nailed it. These people go, "Oh my God."
A few times.
A few times I nailed it. I went to the Crown and Anchor the other day, and this new girl comes up to me and she goes, "Oh gosh, it's really busy here." I said, "Yeah, makes you want to something about somebody's birthday." And I said, "I know your birthday." I said, "September 29th." And she looked at me and she dropped her menus that were in her hand. She
Wow.
goes, "It's my birthday." I went, "I know, I have my ways." So I was starting to get wild with it.
That's impressive, man. I gotta say, in all the years that I've known you and all the success you've had and you continue to have, you're still the same John Good. It's still the humble, like I nailed it a few times. That's funny.
Thank you.
Hey, by the way, I have to tell you, Billy Ward is watching and he says hello.
Oh, God bless him. He's such a
Yeah,
great, great guy.
he
He and I
sure
are
is.
practically brothers,
I know you are. I know. I don't know that I've ever had a conversation with Billy where your name doesn't come up.
Yeah,
Just it comes
thank
up.
God.
Yeah. Well, John, it's so great to see you. Thanks for taking time to do this today. And I'm so honored to have you here with me. Thank you.
Well, I'm honored to be asked to be part of your podcast here,
Well, thanks.
and and I hear it's quite successful, so that's good.
Yeah,
And
thank
you
you.
got a lot of stuff coming up, which is fantastic. I like the way you've done it. So
Thank you.
you get some
Thank
guys like me, and some people may give a damn about, and some may not. There's always
you.
the off button if you don't want me, but it's fun.
No. Well,
Uh,
you did make a nice guest appearance. We did that nice tribute to Jeff Porcaro a couple of years ago, and it was so nice to see you on there. You told it. I don't know if you remember. You told it was on his birthday, I think, or no, it wasn't actually on his birthday, but it was. But you told a great story about when he was, I guess, recording with Madonna, and you were in the studio, and he pulled a little Jeff joke on you or something. He kind of wound you up on something, maybe the sound of the drums. And you were like, "Oh, what are you talking about?" He went, "Ah, man, I'm just fucking with you." It's just,
yeah, yeah, he would do stuff like that.
yeah,
Good Lord, people like that. I mean, he was a humorous guy. And another
yeah.
one I worked for, there was quite a comedian, was Frank Zappa. And
Oh man.
you work for that guy, and you're sitting there, and you're hitting the kick drum, listening to it. There's somebody at rehearsals front of the house. I'm hitting this kick drum, and something's not right. Hitting this kick drum, hitting it. I said, "Hey, Frank," he's over there. He goes, "How's that kick drum sound to you?" And he goes, "Kind of like the one on Hee Haw." Thanks. Reassuring.
I could hear that voice of his too, kind of like the one on Hee Haw. Oh my God. Well, so I made some notes here, John, because there's so much I don't want to forget. Well, there's going to be so much to talk about here, but I don't want to leave out anything of real importance. But um, what I want to kind of start with how you got started with Don. I know the year was 1972. And I know from us being old pals and working together that you originally came from Detroit.
Right.
And so you moved to LA when you were 16 or 17,
Well, I actually
thereabouts?
was living in Torino, Italy. We'd gone to Italy, and to my chagrin, I was 12 years old at the time, and I said, "Look, you're taking away the best years of my life. How dare you move me to Torino, Italy?" I mean, unbelievable crap that came out of my mouth. Mm.
Oh, well,
So like, I went to school in Switzerland. Oh, like all the violins are coming out. I went to this a great American school in Switzerland, and I did most of my stuff there. And I had a little rock and roll band, and
yeah.
I almost wanted to marry this girl, Dana Blocker. She was Blockers are really good friends of mine. And her father, Dan Blocker, was the hoss from the Bonanza show.
Yeah, I remember you telling me all this. Okay, yeah. Yeah.
And I had to be the one to tell them that their dad died.
Oh my gosh.
And it's terrible. And so I followed them over to the United States real quick for something. And then I get back into Europe, and somehow I wound up back in Detroit. My dad said, "Come on to Detroit. We'll get you good job in installing used air conditioning systems in cars or something like that." I went, oh boy, when do I start? Um, so so I said, I'm going to LA. And he said, "Oh, to chase that girl." I go, "Well, that's kind of fizzled a little bit. So I'm going to LA, and I just gotta go. One problem I've got is I don't have means of transportation." So, Dad, I saw this bike in the Honda dealership, and it was just bitching. It was great, and it wasn't cool. This is like back in the days when Easy Rider came out. They had their rolled up tents and
Yeah,
backpacks, American flag. This was like dead straight on, just vibrating. Anyway,
man.
it was, I looked like a nerd and a half. There's a nerd alert went out wherever I went across the country. Nerd alert. So finally, I talked him into saying, "Look, we were building a house together. We did all kinds of stuff together." And I finally said, "I've got to go to LA." So he said, "Well, if you're going to go there, you're going to need some funds." So he opened up his wallet, and like it was a big ceremony. He took out 20, 40, 60. Oh, and there's a 10, $70. Yeah, that's, for you. And it was worth a few centimes more back then, but not that much. And you know, um, so here I
Wow.
am. I get on the bike, and he says, "You don't even know how to really ride that thing, do you?" And I go, "No, I really don't." So I'll figure it out. And boom, off I went. So it was
Wow.
great, man. And I took off. I took off, and you know, I'm a really a LA type of person, more than a Michigan, chopping down stuff.
Yeah.
I So here I am, going across country, and I'd had tennis shoes on instead of leather anything. Had a leather or a jeans jacket and pair of jeans, my helmet, and it started to downpour like nobody's business. I mean, oh God, did it rain?
What time of
Rain.
year was it, John? Was it in the summertime at least?
This was this was yeah, yeah, it was. It was
Okay.
like close to the fall.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, past that time. Anyway, and so it was just ridiculously. I got to
Oh.
know the inside of Thunderbird motels pretty good, and can hotwire the movies. Anyway, but you know those neon birds that look like this. That's
Oh
how.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So I was going Thunderbird to Thunderbird, and then this downpour came, and it was just like going so hard at me. I mean, I thought I was really gonna die. And it was night, and it was pounding so hard. I saw the green sign that says Holiday Inn. So got up there, drove up there, and the doors opened up for me, and I stepped inside, and they yelled at me to stop. And they said, "You're getting the floor all wet. Stand on this mat right here. You're drenched." And I
Oh
said, "Yeah,
my gosh.
I'm soaked. Every layer to your through your skin. That's just terrible." And I said, I need a room to stay in tonight. I mean, it's awful out there. And she goes, "Yeah. Well, we got a room. That'd be 14.95. Thanks anyhow." Back out on the bike. This is only like outside of Omaha somewhere. It was like a
Oh man.
west of Omaha. And got back on the bike, drove to the freeway, got underneath the thing, going the other direction, and just picked the bike over and just kind of slept right there. Man, that was the most depressing night of my life. Oof. But
Man.
I got there. I mean, I made it.
Yeah. Landed
I
on
got
your
to
feet.
LA and it was hard.
Yeah.
Even here.
And did you have were you were playing drums? Did you have aspirations of being a drummer when you got out there, like joining a band and
Very
pers-
much.
very much. That was kind of beside the girl. That was
Yeah,
the reason, yeah, to go there. Yeah. Like
very
a
much.
lot of people.
And so we had these little off again, on again, little rock and roll bands,
Yeah.
Mm. But your band is only as good as your drummer.
Right.
And this drummer wasn't that great. So
I've heard you knock two and four. I've
yeah,
heard you
like nobody's business. But
uh,
so anyway, I forgot the question in the first place.
no, so I guess it all leads up to you, I guess, studying with Don
Well,
and meeting Don. And was this like 1972 when you moved out there? Was that when the
in
same
around
year?
72, 73. I
Yeah.
was out there in 72. 70, it was like late 72, very first thing, 73. Anyway,
Yeah. Yeah.
he and I got together and and immediately he sat down and said, "Let's see what you got." And I was just like stiff as a awful. Plus I hadn't played for a couple of weeks, and so anyway, he says, "Well, you're a disaster." And he said it in a real kind way. I mean, we both
Yeah.
laughed.
He's so
And
subtle. Yeah.
we went through this routine for about, I don't know, a month or so, maybe a little bit more. I didn't have a place to live, so he let me sleep on the floor at DW.
Oh man, that's
Yeah.
great.
And so I started running this store. It's not, I was making seats at that time. So then we were getting
Yeah.
into manufacturing.
Hmm.
He's playing at night in a nightclub. I'm putting seats together at night and sleeping on the floor.
Yeah.
That was my routine.
And
And
yeah.
no, so I thanked Don for that. But Don was going after a month or more of, he always said, "I told you last week, just because you don't like to play on a rubber pad, And I said, "Yeah, I want to play rock and roll. I mean, why do I need the pad?"
Yeah.
Anyway, and it turned into a comedy act. He swear to God. And he said to me one day, he says, "I've had all these students, tremendous students that went on to big tours and rock and roll, jazz, big band, all kinds of stuff. People who just wound up on television, and nightclubs. You're not going to be one of them." I said, okay, now what do we do? That's exactly what I said to him.
Oh my God.
So right about in that time, we were growing, and Don's father helped us with the next way along our journey,
Hmm.
and that was
Yeah.
moving to Gardena.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that was and so up, and I wonder how many people, and you just said this too, and I wanted to make that point that you guys started off really the only business you were in was making the thrones, right? The barrel style,
Mhm.
like the sort of Buddy Rich throne that we think of. And then it wasn't until the late like 77 when you got the Camco tooling that you started making the pedals, right?
Yeah. And
Yeah.
we started making the pedals, yeah, right around, we got the tooling and a bunch of parts from, well, we settled a deal with Roland.
Yeah.
Isn't that odd? We
Tom
were,
Beckman. You know, I thought of that, John, when I heard about the whole acquisition, knowing the history of DW, I thought, what an irony that Roland basically sold you the Camco tooling and they sold Tom of the name, right? Tom Beckman, who's his son was a student of Don's.
right. You
And
talk
then,
about,
yeah. And then all these years later, Roland, I know, acquires DW. It's just such a, I, you could call it kismet. You could call it,
call it.
yeah,
There's a few books being written, and people are bugging me to do something like that. Because there's a lot of stories. I mean,
yeah,
think about people in that thing, you know.
yeah. Well, you could write an incredible book. I mean, you could just about your road work, just about your days touring, with all the guys you work for and then building this business that you've built, along with Don, obviously. But and I want to talk about that. So late '70s, you're on to making pedals, and the pedal business becomes really
It's pretty
successful.
interesting. And and of course, Don is a tremendously inventive guy, and he has a knack for things that are
Yeah,
mechanically, things that have moving parts, bearings, all that kind of thing.
yeah, yeah,
Uh, and so it was a challenge because people were coming out with, that was the era of bigger, fatter, uh, you know, heavier.
yeah,
But then again, the Asian companies were they were selling you hollow things. We sold you a solid deal.
yeah,
Well, anyway, so time goes by, and that was tough. That was tough going because we suddenly became somewhat popular with that pedal. I mean, thanks to Don, and we have a guy named Paul Rial was helping us at the time.
yeah,
And
yep. Is Paul still around, John?
I'm not quite sure.
Yeah. When I was there with you, I remember he was our distributor, and I was on the phone with Dave Murphy every day, he's screaming for product, because the stuff was back ordered perpetually. I mean, we couldn't make the pedals fast enough. Um, you know, it was quite a situation. But I'm not telling you anything you don't already know. So I guess my next question would be, when did the transition to like starting to make drums, like little one-off drum sets or snare drums, like when did that
When did
start
we
to
get
happen?
into becoming a drum company as opposed to a hardware company?
Yeah, well, when I started in '86, I'll just say like I know the history is different when you look at different when you Google it and you see different years, but you guys hired me in '86, and at that time, Don said I want to launch the official line in '87, like January '87 NAMM. So in my mind, that was kind of, but you'd already been making drums because you had Chad and you had Jim Keltner and Johnny Hernandez and Nick Ceroli and a bunch of guys.
Yeah, guys, yeah, from probably started in 79,
Yeah, yeah.
80.
Okay,
And
yeah. And I guess my question for you is, had you had experience working with wood and building drums, or did you just kind of realize you had a knack for it and you just developed and blossomed? I've never really asked that question because in all the time I've known you, you've been a drum maker. And
And I will tell you this as a long-winded answer to your question, if you don't mind.
of course, no.
Picture this. I'm in Birmingham, Michigan, right? Or they actually call it Bel Air, Michigan. So once again, poor boy comes from Michigan. Anyway, um, so I'm supposed to be, doing my chores, but man, I had this tennis ball, and the garage door was down, and I was just throwing strikes like lightning against that and come back to you.
Yeah.
Car drives up in the driveway, and it's the nose on the thing is a mile long. Any one of those cars, it's like, the door is 1,000 pounds. So,
Yeah.
and these two wingtip shoes step out with the jacket and the white shirt, the black skinny tie. My dad steps out and he goes, "Son, you know what this car costs?" It's a Ford LTD. I'm going, geez, I can't tell you, Dad. How much does it cost? He says, $4,000. And I swear to God, you've heard of people self-combusting. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
I almost, whoa, $4,000. Yeah. He says, "Do you know what that garage door costs to fix it after years of you banging on it like that? Do you know?" And I said, "I get it, Dad." And he says, "I see you do that again, you're gonna get busted in half." Just like that. He says, "Now there's something I want to talk to you about." And he says, Why were you doing that? Why do you always hit the door like that? I mean, tell me." And so I was 12 years old, and I said, "If you listen to it, I'm going to throw it now, and don't get mad. But there's no cars inside there, so there's a chamber back there.
Yeah.
Throw the ball against it, and oddly enough, depending on where you hit it, because the structure is made of fir, Doug fir,
Hmm.
and the panels in between are all Sitka spruce. So Sitka spruce is super light material, but it just resonates forever. It's beautiful. So I could go on for days.
Yeah. Okay. I see where you're going. Yeah.
So anyway, and so I'd hit it and I'd boom, we'd hear this tone. You hear this tone. And it was just amazing to me to hear that tone. So then you hit the support parts, right? And that had a higher tone, hit this baby, boom. And there was only a big panel on the bottom. Yeah, it was beautiful, beautiful, man.
Man.
So the garage door really helped me a lot, but I was forbidden to hit that thing again. So what he wanted to talk to me about was we're moving away. We're moving to Torino, Italy. That's it.
Hmm.
Gotta go. Boy, you talk about buckets of rain and crying and oh Jesus. He ruined my life, but
Well,
he actually provided an incredible life.
yeah. Yeah.
Uh,
I was just going to say, well, it's funny how, perspective can change things, and how
like
things turned out.
it's like, here's this kid crying because my life is a 5 mile radius, around around my wherever my bicycle is. And
Yeah.
you have your friends and you've got your bikes and your school and all that stuff, and you cut grass and da 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 da. So all of that was being taken away from me. So
Mm.
now you're in a place that actually has culture, which
Right.
is really amazing. And boy, we learned to love it so much. My God, you know, I lived near the basilica called Superga, and man, oh man, some of the timber around there, they were just cutting stuff out just to tidy things up, and I'm out there, Americano, stop, stop, out, stop, and And then they're like, "Vroom, more diesel on that guy.
Oh,
Anyway, they're humming along and they didn't stop for anybody, but they cut a bunch of shit that I could have used some of it. I mean,
uh,
I don't know. Like right now,
yeah. But what a great experience. How long did you live in Italy?
I lived there from, let's see, I lived in Switzerland and Italy at the same time. So I lived in Italy from 67 to 72, to
Hmm.
early 72.
Yeah. So 5 years, man. That's yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, you can really get into the culture in that amount of time, for
Oh, you
sure.
can.
Yeah.
Then in the Swiss side of it all, we were, our boarding school was amazing. And I mean, you got people coming from Casablanca, from, Jakarta, from Dubai, from all over the place.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was pretty interesting.
Yeah. No, it's a well, yeah.
You know what I
I was
mean?
just Europe is a whole other thing. I
That's it.
know. It's
Yeah, I'm going back there.
that's right. Yeah, you
Yeah.
mentioned that. That's great.
I
That'll be
haven't gotten
fun.
permission yet. I haven't gotten permission yet.
Yeah.
Permission meaning there's a lot of medical things that have to happen.
Yeah.
But fingers crossed.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So
Um, no, sorry, I'm getting a
what didn't I, how did
no,
I,
no, I'm gonna keep moving on down the timeline. So
yeah,
so I'm just gonna
what time do we have?
we got all day.
Okay.
No, no, no. I won't. I won't. I know it's time
I
is
won't bore your people with my story.
no. This is great. This is the whole backstory to John Good. I love it, and I know people are enjoying this. So it's now we'll say just for sake of argument, it's the late '70s, early '80s. You're making drums, sort of one off here and there for people. Um, Not really a drum company yet, but really still a hardware company, but with the ability you have some Camco hardware left over, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And you're using that to make drums. When did you because again, I go back to when I met you in 1986. You were well established as the guy in town to redo bearing edges. And I remember you sitting me down. We used to share the same office and you educating me and you showed me I think it might have been one of Graham Lear's Gretsch drums that he had given you to do the edges on. And you showed me, I thought I knew about drums. I knew nothing about drums until I met you, honestly. And you said, you see the differences here? You see how you can see light in here and on the glass table. And this is the most important part of the drum. And you totally took me to school. And now I think everybody is pretty hip to what bearing edges are all about, the importance. I certainly wasn't at that time. I thought you buy a drum from Gretsch or Ludwig or somebody, you put good heads on it, you tune it up, it's going to sound good. But so
No, it's
yeah,
very, very important. I mean, I hate to add to that, but
yeah, yeah,
if you have if you have the shell is tight, meaning that all the plies are put together right, and the grain orientation, which you could talk about all day, is another thing.
yeah,
Excuse me. And then as long as you got the wood working together, not against itself, you've got really happening edges, really beautifully, really well thought through edges. And you've selected a drum head. The head is really right. The head's got to be right.
yeah,
Put that baby on there. Now the counter hoop has got to be right. Many of them are twisted. Many of them are oval shaped. So ways to check that, but just try and get some that are flat.
yeah,
Put them on. We started off at 1224, which is a 24 threads per inch. 1224.
yeah, yeah,
Then we went to a metric that made it 30% more threads. So true pitch 30.
yeah,
And so everybody's going, your standardization, is going away. Well, well, here's the big one. How about true pitch 50? And that for people who tune for a living, I mean, people who really have to keep the
Yeah.
stuff like yourself. Like you've got to really keep everything really tight, if you have to play. And not only is it great for finding the pitch you're looking for, it stays there because it's a
Yeah.
hell of a lot of threads to go through to loosen up.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I get it. I do. And you explained this to me once at a NAM show because I didn't really appreciate the significance of how you can fine tune something,
I,
and the importance.
I just have I've got a big one now. But what I mean is this guy's trying to sell me sycamore, not
Ah,
sycamore, not sycamore. What am I saying? It's the rainforest. It's not the rainforest. It's the sequoia,
Sequoia.
sequoia. And out of the blue, bang, here it comes. Well, okay, it's protected, so it's down, right? Yeah, it fell. It was on an Indian reservation, so the negotiations they made were with the Indians,
Mm.
and then they took it, or I believe they are taking it, or have taken it to Colorado. So, uh-oh.
Is it from Northern California? Is that where it came
Yeah,
from?
yeah.
Yeah.
But
Wow.
so I don't know what to do. The thing is
Yeah.
270 feet tall, and at the base is 10 feet in diameter. And there on top of it all, there's a burl ball the whole thing sat on.
Yeah.
I think chills just thinking about it. So
Those sequoia trees, I've seen them. They are just, you can't believe it until you see them, what they look like. Yeah.
you really can't. And you don't want them to be cut down. You really want them
Yeah.
there. And this
Yeah.
this unless it falls naturally, that's what happens. So yeah, I just look at those things and I go, my God, they were here. So that one's 4,000 years old, man. And in the when you think about everything that's involved with this world, that's just like a sneeze. I mean, that's
Yeah.
it.
I
Really,
know.
think
Yeah.
about time.
Right. Right.
I wish we had more of it, don't you?
I do. Every day, but that's, yeah. Well, but that's a great segue to another question I want to ask you, which is my recollection, John, is the original sort of DW recipe was 6-ply maple with reinforcement rings, like the first drums when you only offered one line of drums back in early 80s, say.
Mhm.
And that's correct, right? It was a 6-ply maple shell with the
It was yeah.
reinforcement.
But when you say ply,
Yeah.
what's the thickness of the ply?
Right. Yeah. That's
You know what
exactly.
I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I've called out. I want to keep it as true as possible to
Yep.
Camco. I love Camco. Um, so we tried to keep it at a 32nd of an inch. Now we
Yeah.
didn't have the ability to make shells at that time. So we had Keller, this company that makes shells and
Yep.
all kinds of things, make all kinds of stuff. Um, they uh they they were actually some nice guys for a while. And then they got really snooty with me, and we were a big part of their business for a
Oh
while.
yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So being snooty like that, boy, oh boy, man, I said, okay, that's it. I'm going to learn how to do this better. So because the 132nd thickness slowly became a 136, then it became a 138, and then now it's a 40th. They're pushing it into a 42nd.
Wow.
Come on, man. Well, they can get a lot more out of it,
Yeah. Yeah.
but no, not when I call it out like that, it stays that way. If
Yep.
you have changes, then we have to talk about it.
Yeah. Yep.
Um, but I used to have guys like Joe Montanari, he said, "Hey, Joe, walk down or drive over to see what's going on with this," and he'd do shit like that. And this came to me the other day. Do you see it?
Oh yeah. Oh, God bless Joe. God rest his soul. Yeah.
Anyway,
Yeah. I know. I know.
um, now,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yep.
so when you get into thinking about thick and thin, you know, you know, thicker is going to have more mass, so um, it should be louder, it should be higher.
Right.
Thinner, which has very little mass to move to get the thing going already, is much lower because it's easy to vibrate and long vibrations because it's thin. Well, so the garden is sitting there in front of you. You can do anything if you realize if you can make plywood, you can make anything.
Hmm.
Kid you not.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So
And and so when and again I know I don't expect you to like name an exact year, but I remember there being a turning point. By the way, Don loves to kid me about how when I left DW to go work for Zildjian, how business just exploded. He would he would he would introduce me at the NAM show. I'd come over to see you guys, and he'd say, John here used to work for me, but now he went to work for Zildjian, and the best thing he ever did was leave because our business just exploded after he left.
she's yanking your chain.
Oh, I know. I love Don. I love him. But
It
but I
just about killed me when you left. That was something.
well, I remember I remember some of the last words you said to me the last day that I was there in California before I moved east, and you said, "Yeah, man, this place." You said something like it really, again, it resonated. You said something to the effect of, "There's not a lot of sometimes there's not a lot of soul out here," um, and that was exactly it. I mean, it was like we had a little baby, and we were flying back and forth all the time, trying to, have my family get to know their first little grandchild, and my ex-wife's and anyway, not to get into all that, but you always had great words of wisdom. I mean that, John.
Well, it's very,
You
very nice of you to say that.
yeah,
You know,
absolutely.
since we've been friends so long, and this distance really has gotten the best bloody thing here is this is being able to have this FaceTime, you know.
Yeah, yeah,
Uh,
it is. It's
I have I do two meetings. I have a men's meeting. It's called the Gathering of Men, and everybody's got problems, and we all talk about it. It's run by AA.
yeah,
So, but you meet the most incredible people in
yeah,
these rooms. They call them rooms.
yeah,
But
yeah.
and it really encourages me to crawl out of the shell, so to speak. And especially when we can talk and, it's almost as good as being able to touch somebody, it really is.
It is. I agree. And like I said, I would always look forward to seeing you and Don and Chris and everybody at the show. But it's just that's we know it's the worst place to try to actually have a conversation with somebody. You can never really go to a NAM
Yeah.
show and have any sort of quality anything. But
Well,
yeah,
somebody, they're really pleasant people and there's some pretty pushy people, so you try
yeah,
not to get upset with anybody, you just keep it cool.
yeah,
So,
exactly.
and and I've been having trouble with my back really bad, super duper bad. And things start to tumble. You know how it goes.
Yeah.
So my back, this will be operation number 5. We're trying, and then we were going on a cruise. We're meeting up with my friends from Australia, and we're meeting them in Rome, and it's gonna be bitching, right?
Oh, it's going to be
Well,
great.
driving to work is about as far as I right now want to do it, or else
Yeah.
you won't believe the pain. So I'm hoping that this spine stimulator I'm having put in on the 21st. Oh, that's in a couple of days.
Yeah. That's later this week. Yeah.
Oh shit.
Okay. No, but
Oh,
that's,
baby.
yeah. Yeah.
Anyway,
It's going to be good.
but the thing is that works for 50% of the people and it just doesn't work for others. So anyway, they're gonna do that. And Christ, man, I didn't realize it was coming up that fast. But when you have all these health problems, people say, "Do you remember how you hurt yourself?"
Mm.
And I remember exactly the moment and place and everything about it. And it was in 1982, and I was out with Frank Zappa, and Chad was playing drums, and we were in Würzburg. If you've ever
Mm.
been to Würzburg, which you have, there's these castles up high, and
Hmm.
the Autobahn goes down here. Well, they once you get into their parking area, you have to leave the trucks down. So you have to put them on four-wheel drive dealy bobs. They go all the way up to the top and set up. Boy, man, it's a pain.
Oh my
So
God. Yeah.
set up, man, it was a great show, recorded really well. And it was a bitchin' night. No, everything went right. So we're coming down and it's now starting to go crack. This lightning is where'd that come from, And then bam, 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 bam. And I mean golf ball or softball size drops of water hurt like hell when they hit you.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, goddamn, and I was the low man on the totem pole. So, of course, they stick my ass at the end of every heavy case. And in this instance, I had the front of house, Harris, what's it, 58, 56? And those were heavy. There were no digitals.
Yeah.
Everything
Yeah.
was a pot. And if that thing gets turned over, somebody's not eating dinner for couple nights. So
Man.
anyway, I'm pushing, and it's like it's pounding now so hard, you just can't hear anybody. If we were this close, John, and so finally the thing starts to go, and I oh man, I got to save this, and I reach out, and my left foot slips on that aluminum ramp, and I just twisted. My
Oh.
spine just went wow like that.
Oh.
I can hear the noise of the cartilage and everything. And two other guys straightened it out and got it in. And I'm standing there and I'm bawling my eyes out. So they
Oh
got
my
me
God.
down to the bus. Okay, I think this. I'm riding in the golf thing, and blah, 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 blah. And we get down there, and they have a plan. Now, remind you, it is pouring down rain. It took me 5 minutes to get up those three little steps.
Oh
Five.
my gosh.
And finally, they said, let's lay him down like this, and we'll shovel him in his bunk like a pizza, right? First, let's get him somewhat dried off, and all that. And he said, oh, yeah, the guitar case, maybe we should take that out. Okay, because I've been riding with this guitar case for 3 months. I'm the low man on the totem pole, stick it in his bunk,
Oh.
right? All right. So they took this case out, and they had just put me in, and I'm going, oh. And I said, what's in that case? So they popped it open. The guitar that Jimi Hendrix burnt at Monterey Jazz Festival, Pop Festival.
Oh my God.
On stage, he just wasted this guitar. You remember that?
I totally can picture it. Yes.
So he gave it to Frank. And so one of the guy named Rabbi, he was trying to bring it back to life.
Oh my God.
Electronics.
Where do you think that guitar is today? Is it still in Frank's family
No,
somewhere?
no, I think Dweezil let it go, unfortunately.
Oh my God. That's wow. What a great story, man. Wow.
Mm.
Wow. Well, not a good story about what happened to your back and your spine, but still. Well, in the interest of not having you sit for too long,
Mhm.
I'm gonna ask you a few more things just to sort of recollect if you can. We talked about the original recipe of DW shells being maple, and And I started to say when you recollect, I remember the early 90s when like alternative music really took off and grunge and all that, and bands like Pearl Jam being the real turning point for DW. Would you agree that was when the sort of early to mid 90s when things just really hit a stride that turned
Well, you
things
remember
around?
when Tommy Lee came on
Yeah,
board?
that's right too. That was early 90s. Yeah.
Remember when I was making all of his pearl shells, they said, "Hey, could you timbre match these?" So I said, "Well, have them send out 5 kits worth." So all these drums show up, and they were way all over the place. I mean, really, really bad. But you put them all together, and they're fine.
Yeah. Yeah.
The edges were just awful. So, well, we recut them, and they're fine. So we painted them, did the whole thing, Dr. Feel Good or something like that.
Yeah. I remember that video. He was playing DW by then.
That was DW, but this one was just before it. It's a
Oh,
Russian festival or something.
yeah.
So so after he came on board, Chris, uh, who was very much in charge of sales at one time,
Yeah.
he goes over to his dad, and his dad goes, "What's up?" He said, "We have a real problem." So I walk up, I go, "What's up?" "Oh, you won't believe this." "What?" "We sold like 100 drum kits." How in the hell are we gonna make these things? And we all
Yeah.
started laughing.
Yeah. It's
And I had this blank, and this just deer in headlights, look on my face. But by the time the trade show came around again, they got them, my God. And I was just
yeah.
already telling them, oh, those other ones? Don't think of that. These are the new ones.
I remember hearing that story probably right around that time that didn't Chris say something like we're not going to take it. It was like the second day of the NAM show or something. We're not going to take any more orders because
Oh, yeah, it
it
was just
just
so
maxed
over.
you. But that was an amazing time to see that happening for you guys, especially where I was thinking about this morning, how if any drummer that started playing drums in 1995 probably thinks you woke up one day, decided to make drums, and became the biggest drum company in the world. They don't understand all the years and I remember being there with you, John, when you know something would go wrong, and you had to redo a kit. Um, photo finish the night before the NAMM show starts, you coming in literally at 7 o'clock with the drums done. And I mean, when I was still there, that was happening. I mean, it was that because it was so down to the wire, like getting stuff sprayed and, painting. We had issues. We had Pat Foley for a while. Then we got Bill Dedamore.
Did you hear that passed?
I heard Pat pass. Yeah, yeah, I did. I did. Rest his soul. Yeah, and I'm not talking anything bad about Pat, but just all the things that you went through building that brand of just trying to find the right people, the right, sort of personalities to make it all gel. And anyway, my point being that it's so great to see the success that you have.
Oh, that's why I said you never should have left. No, not going to get into that again.
No,
But
no, no.
when I write whatever I'm going to write, I promise it'll be thicker than this. All right. Now, so
Okay.
so what happens is, people who travel on the road, and of course, I travel a lot on the road,
Yeah. Yeah.
and there's always like this little itinerary, right?
Yeah. Yep.
So, and everything, not everything, but a real critical one will be so wrong. Instead of 4 minutes away from the venue, we're 45 minutes away. It's all kind of weird shit. So, we wound up calling that the Book of Lies.
Right.
Lies, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So then I had to talk about all my things that I talk about. So I called this one
The Book of Plies. I love it. I love it. Oh, that's awesome. That is so great. The Book of Lies, the Book of
Yeah,
Plies. Yeah.
was. Oh
Oh,
man.
but it's funny. You old habits die hard because again, I can picture you walking through the door at DW, the old Newbury Park, Thousand Oaks building where I worked, and we shared that office together. And you'd come in and you had your planner. You'd come in with your black
Yep.
big
Oh yeah.
notebook, and you'd flip that open, and you'd go, "All right, yep, yep," and maybe make a phone call, and then off you'd go into the factory. And I might see you one more time through the day, but that would be it. And you like everything was all planned out, and this is what I'm going to do today. And yeah, it was, yeah, that's
It
that.
was my futile, excuse me, attempt at trying to be really organized, and I just, oh
Well,
man.
you are. I mean, you certainly were then because I took that to be from life on the road. You gotta be pretty organized to be on the road, even if you
Oh
don't
God.
think you are. You know.
Oh boy. One just swam across my head. You remember back in '82, the Chariots of Fire, or
Oh,
Chariots of Fire.
yeah,
You remember that?
I
And that was
do.
boom,
Yeah,
boom, boom, boom,
yeah,
boom, boom. That, and everyone was burdened with that thing for years. Exactly.
yeah.
And so everybody's going to see this silly movie, and I guess it was good. And so I'm told. Anyway, now picture that. Okay, so Frank's looking at me, and his tech had just walked onto the other side of the stage. So there's, you got to go all the way in the back and da, da, da. So he goes all the way to the other side of the stage, and Frank is standing there, and the band is kind of heating up a little bit, and he's starting to, introduce the band. Just a real casual thing.
Yeah.
And Tommy Mars and that. And so as you're going along, in between every one of those, he's looking at me like this, like,
Ooh.
what gives? I don't know. So he gets all of them finished. He says, I got one more thing. He said, Quest for Fire. I went, oh shit, all this time. Here, talk about you should have all those tools on your hands. So I went up there and bam. And he said, God, introduced me, Quest for Fire.
Quest for Fire.
Oh, and then he also said, oh, it was great. This time we were in Frejus, France, and it's a Coliseum. And his first thing out of his mouth was, you know why this place is still standing? It wasn't built by union labor.
Oh,
Let's get it
oh,
straight right now. Uh,
oh,
the last ones that played here were the Christians. Uh,
oh man. I'm sure there's a lot of great Frank stories,
oh,
man.
there's a lot of Franco stories, man.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'm gonna keep moving here with you, John.
Okay.
Um, I know, you talked a little bit, you mentioned the sequoia wood, and I know at some point in the 90s you got into using different species of wood, and that was really just experimental. Was there an artist? Was it like a Jim Keltner request to try something different? Or did you just kind of
Are you
decide?
referring to the sunken wood?
Yeah, well, I feel like the sunken wood, and then there were just other exotic woods over the years, and we'll talk about the man that gave you the nickname Drum Whisperer.
Mhm.
Um, did you make something special for Neil Peart too? Some sort of exotic wood? Do I have that right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And he loves the sound of the drums. Of course, the appearance and what have you is very important. They've got elaborate stuff around it,
Right.
but like you can't use snakes and arrows for their whatever unless you're chasing that record.
Yeah.
So, fuck, I don't know. So anyway, he is not a big wood guy. I mean, as far as the beautiful art of wood, he knows so much of it. And if he was just, oh, and in this book, he wrote the pre-deal, and it is so well done. And I'll just give you a taste.
Yeah, yeah, please. Yeah.
Humans, humans have our growth rings too. And often we measure those years, those triumphs, and those ordeals in music. We try them in music. The songs of our youth, of our courtships, of our good and bad times remain alive to us for life. Music interweaves tightly into our memories and its rhythms and harmonies, conveying so much that we look towards a kind of a spiritual energy, dreamlike, emotional, and ingrained, that hearing a fugitive melody can instantly transport us back to another time when there was another place. I'm sorry about my reading because I have dyslexia real bad. But I really just,
Yeah.
every
No,
word that comes out of that guy's mouth is just gold
I
and
know.
well.
Yeah. Yeah. That's beautiful. Neil, I mean, God, he was, he was just such an incredible writer, and everything he did. I have a couple of letters that he wrote me, when we worked together, when he was with Zildjian, and yeah, it was just a joy, the little bit of time that I got to work with him. Uh,
Well,
yeah. Yeah.
um, the last time I saw him, he had this place that's called his man cave. All right. So his man cave is just like nothing special, kind of bunch of pull up doors and stuff like that. So he had unit B or whatever, and so anyway, he's got his cars in there, and he's got every one of them are Aston Martins,
Oh man.
except for a couple of Corvettes, and there's another one I forget, but they're all painted the exact same colors of silver, all the
Wow.
exact same colors. And in the interiors are just luscious. This is red, that's white, that's black, that one's, you know, just all over the place. So he's proud of them, and he just loves it. So I give him a call and I say, hey, listen, I'd like to come by, and I'd like to got a few things I want to talk to you about. So is it possible to come by the cave? And he goes, oh, by the way, this was email. This was email.
Mm.
So he wrote back immediately, yes. He says, will it just be you? I said, no, Don will most likely want to come. So he said, okay, fix the time. All right. So Don was excited. He wanted to go see him too and try and give him some enthusiasm, some
Yeah.
support.
Yeah.
And so we go down there, and we jump out, and there he is, man. It's just such a statue of a man. And
Yeah.
and so we're after the hugging and all that good stuff. We go to the couch and sit down, and I'm just looking at all the cars. We're having a nice little chat. Now his and I won't imitate this, but his slurring really got very intense,
Yeah.
and his reaction time got very slow. So when you ask a question, it takes a minute to get an answer. So anyway, I was getting really kind of uncomfortable a little bit. So at one point, Don says, "Who wants some lunch?" I said, "Well, I could use some lunch," and he wants some lunch. And Neil had some Tupperware, had a sandwich crosscut. So 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 we got some Chinese food across the way. Well, Don takes off and runs. Now I'm sitting there and I realize Neil Peart is staring at me, and I'm going, Uh, hmm. I said, hey, Neil, do you ever start these cars? Somebody needs to start these. And he goes, yeah, you got almost like he was going to be pissed off. I said, I know that you can't drive, but they have to be started. So he says, oh, yeah. I said, there's this staring thing again. And I said, hey, Pally, what do you do with your time? If I can ask. He says, well, the guy picks me up in the morning and takes me into this cave. And this, on the way here, we listened to three songs. So I'm here that all day. I have my lunch. And he comes and picks me up at 2:30, and we drive along and we listen to three more songs. And I said, like an idiot, I just said, what kind of music? And, I'm expecting, some kind of classical thing or what he's
Yeah.
playing. And
Yeah.
so he looks at me and he goes, Rush. Like what other? And I kind of went, wow. And so after I chuckle for a second, he says, he's looking right at me. He says, John, we were pretty good. I said,
Oh
yeah,
man.
yeah, you were pretty good, man. Or a lot
Oh,
more than pretty good.
wow.
He said he always used to, he never wanted to let anybody down. So his way he approached it was military, it was very, very,
Yeah.
very, very strict.
Well, I know the stories, or the story of how he would rehearse on his own. Don told this story, in fact, when he was on the podcast. And I had Lauren Wheaton too, a while back. And I think Lauren said the same thing where Neil would go in before the band rehearsal, like he'd come to DW to Drum Channel and rehearse all the music on his own so that when he got to band rehearsal, there was no messing around with it, if I have that right. Right. I mean, he was that.
He rehearsed to rehearse.
Yeah, I think and that explains so much about why he played the way he did so perfectly, like
I come around the
flawlessly.
corner and
Yeah.
he's in there. And, we have these different buildings. I
Yeah.
come around the corner with some paperwork and I see grown men with their ears like going, that's Tom Sawyer. And nobody, you know, and I go, all I have to do is go,
Yeah.
so
Scatter.
yeah. But you're right. He just block that out and
Yeah.
play, he'd take that little, his smallest Aston Martin and drive that one. And if you imagine how big he was and how
Yeah.
small this car is,
Yeah. Well,
but he said to me, we made some changes, like the coffee pot went in another place and this went there. And he says, and his parking place where he used to park, he can't park there. Da, 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 da. So he said, he took me aside and he says, for the record, I don't like it. Hey, well, you're
oh,
entitled to your opinion. And I said, talk to Don. Anyway,
oh,
so,
that's great.
he was so comfortable here.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and one thing that was really, really great, he was so comfortable that he would come here and he was always worried about people approaching him and doing all this stuff. He's a very private man.
Yeah.
And so when I took him on the tour the first time he came here, I said to my whole crew, I said, listen, don't anybody ask for their autograph or here's a
Hmm.
drum head, sign this or whatever. And I'm going, no, no, no. Listen, I want him to feel comfortable.
Yeah.
So he goes around and everybody's just working fine. And we do an in-depth tour of this whole place, how everything goes together and what's going on. Well, we get back to my office, just where he had his leathers. And he says, can I ask you a question? I said, what's the matter? He says, do they not like me out there or what?
Oh my God.
I
Oh
guess
my.
I guess we OD'd on the idea of, people.
You put the fear of God into those employees.
Didn't know what I was doing. But here's the best. He comes. He eventually just loved this place so much. He called it his second home.
Yeah.
So he's coming. He wants to bring his dad. So his dad is
Oh,
like a farm equipment sales guy in Indiana. So his dad is out on a vacation. I'd never met him before. His mother, and so it's like let's make it a dad and son day of it, right? So
mm,
they show up in that car, and I'm starting to take him on the tour. He's a really lovely man. His name was Glenn, and I start off, and Neil is like, whatever I said, he said, "Okay, now did you hear that? It's very important that you hear this stuff because I really want you to know how this goes." And go a little further down. He says, "Somebody wants me to signature on something, right?"
yeah.
Next thing I know, they look and he's already up there, and he's saying, "Oh, I got to show you Louis. Come on, let's go into Louis's place." And I just kind of let him go.
Yeah. That's
You know what I
great.
mean? They were
Yeah.
having a ball.
Neil
He was
took his dad
showing
on the
his
tour.
dad.
Yeah.
He was showing his dad. It was just
Oh, that's
he shook him.
beautiful.
It was really
Well,
cool.
John, you took the words out of my mouth. I was going to say, just from an outsider looking in, he found his home with you guys. He was such a, I mean, and I would even say that, he was all the years he was with Zildjian, he really found his place, it seemed, with Sabian, with Chris Stanky. I know they were very close and they'd
Very.
ride together. And yeah, and I love that I have so much respect for him that, I just, I love hearing these stories because you know better than anybody. He wasn't somebody that, got to know everybody the way he got to know you, and that you got to know him. You had to be let into that circle, and he was so comfortable with you and Don, and I'm sure Garrison too, and everybody there. But you especially, you could see that you guys were like,
And Louis and he got to be close as well. Louis
yeah,
Garcia, our painter.
yeah,
And
yeah,
he's renowned, that painter. And so I would go with Neil would start to deal with, okay, here's what I'm hearing I want to hear. So I start thinking about a shell and a material, and is it going to be cherry this time? Do I want to use something else? Do I want to put some spruce in there? I'm just
mm,
going nuts.
yeah,
So so we finally arrive at the whole configuration, which is no easy task. And then to timbre match it is another one. But it seems to
yeah,
work
y-
quite well.
yeah.
So
Well,
so anyway, when I've done my preliminary stuff and I hand him over to Louis, and he goes over at Louis's place where the fans are real loud, and but he shows him some sketches that he had or an idea, and by the end of the day, we're already making sketches and ideas and
yeah,
having a blast at it.
that's
It
great.
is not your average drum set, you know.
No, but just the fact that he could drive up, the 101 freeway and come to his drum factory and talk to the guy making the drums. And I mean, that's very special.
It doesn't get better when you can have your drum company in your backyard.
Yeah. Yep.
It's
Exactly.
great for people.
Great for people. Well, I'm not going to keep you much longer, John. I do want to talk about. I was going to mention just a couple of the guys when I was there working with you. I had Sean London on my show a couple of weeks ago. I think I mentioned to
Oh,
you, and
yeah, you did.
yeah, Sean was great. We were talking about his dad, and I don't know if I mentioned this to Sean at the time, but I will say I remember you and Don assigning me a very important task to pick up Larry at the Sheraton Universal in Studio City, wherever it is, or or Universal City,
University City.
because I lived in the Valley. I lived in Canoga
Yeah.
Park, and pick him up and bring him up to the factory. And this was going to be his first time visiting. This would have been 1987, 88. He was in LA. So I don't think I mentioned this to Sean, and this is probably one of the biggest regrets of my life was I would never make this rookie mistake today, but generally it took me during traffic to get from the West Valley down to Hollywood
Oh, I know.
Universal. I could do it in 45 minutes maybe typically. So I think I allotted that much time and it
Right.
took me over an hour. So when I finally got to the hotel, Larry was not in a great mood. Larry, he had been sitting in the lobby waiting for me, and I introduced myself, and he was just kind of, okay. And but I will say to his credit, I didn't know him like you did, but I did get to know him a little bit over the years, and he was so nice. By the time we got to the factory, we had chatted, and he was great. But I just say that because I remember Larry becoming a DW endorser, and that becoming a big turning point. I think the same year as Danny Serafin and
Huge stuff,
yeah,
you know.
yeah, big um,
And
guys that signed on.
when I come out with a new idea,
Yeah.
the good thing is it's going to be exciting. And drummers just unfortunately have this knack of saying, "Hey, Mr. Good, what's new?" I say, "Well, this thing is blah, blah, blah." Oh, I don't see how that'll work. In other
Yeah.
words, they want something, but they don't. And so just flashing something that I'm working on. You can't see it.
Oh, yeah. Look at that.
See the aluminum inside. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say too much about it right now.
Okay.
Holy crap, is that great?
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
It's it excites. It vibrates much faster and longer than those other woods around it. So now that's taking the quality of those woods and making them do a little bit more. And what I tend to call it, remember back in the old days when we had the amplifiers in your stereo and it had like Marantz
Yeah.
and they
Yeah.
had this button that was called boost, or they
Yeah. Oh,
had
yeah.
a little knob that would say um, presence,
Mm-hmm. Yep.
and they couldn't really tell you what presence is, but it just made everything mo
Yeah.
better.
You heard it. You absolutely heard it. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so it's kind of like that.
Yeah.
My
All
language
right.
explaining it.
Okay. Yeah. It's like a little bit of a bass, like a sound bar for a drum, like when you buy those
Yeah,
sound bars for your TV.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
a boost.
It's a boost. And yes, Dan Finn asked Larry London. Yes, I was referring to Larry London and
Yeah,
the great Larry London. And so, John, before I let you run today, I want to ask you about Slingerland. Exciting news that you guys bought Slingerland in 2019. I know COVID put a big monkey wrench in all your plans, which is a drag, but now we see Radio King snare drums back
yes.
being made by you. And can you maybe just talk about what's going to happen with drum sets and
Oh, yes, I can.
Slinger?
I'll say this. It's a matter of doing what's right, doing what's traditional at this time,
Yeah,
because I'd like to get back to that traditional thing, and then like it's a new again company that's going from there and getting back into the you know 2025.
yeah, the mainstream.
We
Yeah.
know 2025 very well. So, but we want to have all that traditional stuff going. But
Hmm.
when we do the next phase of R&D and design work, we're going to probably focus more on the spurs and the double tom mount,
Great, great.
tom holder, stuff like
To
that.
try, yeah, not to hold you to anything, but are you going
Oh
to
yeah,
try to?
I'm okay.
No,
Did
I
I say
mean,
that?
are you going to try to? Because I feel like that's something people have asked about is being able to recreate some of the like Slingerland. I know you've done it with the lugs, with the Radio King, but like the tom holder, like the not the Setomatic, but something different from DW that's more unique to Slingerland, kind of tom mounting system and spurs and okay.
We're definitely doing that.
Yep.
And believe me, I mean, we're taking a good hard look at what was,
Yeah.
how do we
Yep.
keep that flavor and get something that is more of what now is all about.
Makes sense. Yep.
And
And
really,
do you envision doing like wrapped finishes? Yeah.
everything.
Everything.
We're gonna
Lacquer
do,
wrap. Yeah.
yeah, we'll do the satin finishes. We'll do the we call it finish ply,
Yeah.
and
Yep.
do of course paint
Yeah.
jobs. And
Beautiful,
there will
man.
be some very exotic stuff in there
Yep.
available as usual. And the greatest thing about that is I am getting those guys out there a little more. They went on a wood hunt for me because I was sick
Yeah. Yep.
and they had a blast. But they also realized how hard that really is to do. So, I
Yeah.
mean, because I'd get it all back, crates come from the shipper. And anyway, they put them on it, forklifts all over the place. They pop it open and they whip it out. And it's like, well, there's a little black mark there. Does that hole go all the way through? Just stuff like that. Where, I'm just going, oh, yeah. So I wanted to be there that moment when they pop their top off and I get to go, well, is that all they had?
Yeah.
So it's just a cute little competition thing anyway. But those
Yeah.
guys are so talented at what they do. They become great artists with wood.
Great.
And I just want to keep that flow going and a lot more things.
Yeah.
A
Yep.
lot, a lot to come. This aluminum thing, the shifter's gonna. I'm working on some stuff right now that's so crazy. I mean, you should see my room.
Yeah, it's like a drum museum.
Yeah.
And the last question I wanted to ask you about Slingerland is, do you envision maybe Don sort of alluded to this, the possibility of some of like a guy like Chad, for example, or Danny Seraphin that used to play Slingerland, maybe endorsing Slingerland? You don't have to answer that question if that's a take the fifth kind of question.
No,
Abs
no, we're really trying to figure out what to do with that because
yeah,
I know that there were two things that Don and I talked about when we were kids. For number one was the Gretsch deal. I said, I think we could really, if we had that company, we could really do something with that.
yeah,
And he agreed, and he always wanted to have that. So that's when that timing fell in our lap that we thought it would be great. And we took it up a couple notches, I think.
yeah,
And they're putting more material out. But the soul of Slingerland it runs deep through our industry. I mean, it really does. I can't think of anybody that didn't have one,
mm,
didn't have a
hmm.
kid. I mean, I was telling Nigel about the
Nigel Olson, another one. Yeah,
Nigel because the first time I saw Elton, it was in the London University cafeteria.
wow.
They had a little put together stage and the low drop down ceilings,
Yeah,
fluorescent lights. They had a Joshua oil thing behind there. Anyway, and he got going, he got going, and he stood on his stool and yeah, jumped up like this, and his head went right through the ceiling, and it came back without hat. So he's like, "Oh shit!" He got his hat back. Oh, it's funny as hell, but everybody's laughing. And now when I see these guys, we've become good friends.
yeah, yeah.
From time to time, I go, "Oh, that hat and the ceiling trick. How did he do that?" Those are great guys, man.
Oh yeah, yeah. You got some great ones, man. Absolutely.
That's
Well,
fun.
John, I won't. I'm gonna let you roll here because I've
Okay,
I've kept you here for a long time today, and I so appreciate you being here with me.
it's all my pleasure.
Yeah,
And,
thank you.
and just remember that all these things are all built around tuning your drums. Everything I do is about
Yeah,
tuning.
yeah,
Somehow,
yep,
some way makes a difference. So that's the way I manufacture and design, and it works for us. So thanks for listening to my bull crap too. I'm sorry.
No, and I'm sorry I didn't make enough of an emphasis on that, and the fact that you are an amazing drum tuner, and I'm glad you imparted that to everybody watching, that all these things that you do, it still comes back to tuning. Even with the best shells and the best wood and the best quality control, you still have to know how to tune a drum.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, yep,
Absolutely.
yep.
Well, but
Uh,
thanks for having me on your show.
Thanks for being here, John. Hang with me if you would for 1 second. We'll end the stream and say goodbye. Everybody, thank you so much for watching today. A big hand for John Good, my old dear buddy from not from South Detroit, which is a fake place. One more story. We heard that song on the radio once, the Journey song "Don't Stop Believin'," when we worked together at DW, and John said to me, there's no such thing as South Detroit. So thank you for that, and hang with me, John, and we'll end the stream. Thanks for watching, everybody. We'll see you soon,
guys.
All right, that's my show. If you enjoyed it, give it a like, leave a comment, and please subscribe to my YouTube channel. And you can also download the podcast on all podcast platforms. A reminder that Live from My Drum Room t-shirts and hoodies are available, and 100% of the proceeds go toward a scholarship I've created with the Percussive Arts Society. Information on ordering Live from My Drum Room merch is in the show notes, and you can also email or text me with any questions at livefrommydrumroom@gmail.com. Thanks to everyone who's bought a t-shirt and a hoodie so far. You're supporting a great cause, and I really appreciate it. And remember, no drummers are harmed on any show. And drummers, when in doubt, leave it out. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you soon.